Hey everyone, what's up? This is Simon from Devdactic and the Ionic Academy. This is the second part of our short video series on uploading files to AWS using Ionic. In the first part, we've created our little backend, and if you haven't done so, make sure to check out the video. The link should be below this video. So now we are ready to upload files to our S3 storage, and we can start with our Ionic app. So I've started a blank new Ionic app, and first of all I go ahead and install the camera plugin and also the file plugin, which we need later on to upload or capture images. Okay, it's quite nice of the Ionic CLI recently that it always asks you to update automatically. So I will just go ahead with this. So as I said, we need the camera to capture images, and we also need the file plugin to resolve the local path to an image, so we can append that information to the put request we will perform to Amazon. So after using the npm package, make sure to add both plugins as well, and also note that from now on you can only, of course, try those things on a real device or simulator, so those functions won't work inside our browser. Additionally, I created a new provider which we will use to handle all the connection to our backend, and I will still bring up the lab because it will show me if we made an error somewhere. So first of all, we need the HTTP module, from add Angular HTTP, and then we got our app ready. Let me bring it in so we can check from time to time if we made any errors. So the HTTP module goes right below here, HTTP module. And the provider is automatically already added, but we still need the camera from add Ionic native camera, and also we need the file, of course the big file from as well add Ionic native file, and make sure to add camera and file to the array here as well. And now we're good to go and can start with our AWS provider. So let's remove this, we don't need that. First of all, let's define our API URL, which is currently localhost. So go ahead and use the one you got. In my case, it's right here. If you deploy it to Heroku, make sure to change this one, of course. But if you run it locally, this should work for you. So now we need to implement a few functions here. So one is get signed upload request. And this is the first step. Here we got the name and a type of a file. And this is to get the signed URL where we can make a put request to. And here we can simply return this HTTP GET. And now a bit crazy syntax, let's give it a try. So we use our API URL and followed by the path to sign. And then we have the parameters, file name, which is one of our variables, and then we also got the file type. Hopefully no typo here. File type, and this is type. And then we need to map this funny stuff, perhaps in the next line, just like always, to JSON. Okay, so we construct the URL using localhost. Let's add a slash here to AWS sign, and we append file name equals our name and file type equals our type. The URLs can be found right in our server. So this is our first route right here. Okay, the second one is we want to be able to get a file list from our backend, and this will return an observable of the type array any. So sometimes I add the return values here because other Ionic functions will be happy then. And of course, we're currently not really returning anything. So let me copy this in because it's a bit much. So now we do a request again to our API URL, to files. We map it to JSON, and perhaps I can show you this. If we make a request to files, our result looks like this. And we only want this contents array with the stuff that's in key. So we change the value and we use all values of contents, so the array, and map each value to just be the key, okay? Which will in the end give us a simple array of strings like this, and we can resolve them later inside our app. Let's go ahead with two more functions. So as I said, we get a list or an array of names like myfile.jpg, and this is of course not enough to receive the file from our S3 bucket because the files are protected and not available for public view. So therefore, we make a request to our backend using the name of the file, which will give us a signed file request, which we can then simply use to make a GET request. And then we are allowed to access the resource. Okay, I hope this is more or less clear. Then we got the delete file, which is just a delete request to the root we've created in our server. Then we need another function which will give us a random string. You can find the attribution, or I can edit right here from good old Nick. I just copied it. Thanks, Nick. It's a good function. It works. Finally, we need, of course, upload file function. But in this case, we just need to make a put request to the URL we got from our first request right here. So we will make a put request with a file, and those two things will already come from our controller. So that's our AWS provider, and now let's continue with the home view and controller. So for the home TS, let's start. We will hopefully have an image array at some point. We might need a loading controller. There's some shortcut to import this, but I don't know what it is. I need to find out. If you know it, please let me know. I'm really interested in knowing how this shortcut works. Besides that, we need, of course, our provider, AWS provider. Perhaps we also need toast controller from Ionic. So quite a lot we have to import here. Let me check if this is everything. Okay, yeah. We need 3 more imports. Oh, come on, this is so long. We need the action sheet controller, and we need file and camera from our previously installed stuff. So let's add them somewhere here. And for the camera, let's use the auto import and this one as well. Okay, so make sure you got all the imports right here. It's not that easy, but I think you will get this. So once our view enters, Ion view will enter. We will call a function to load our images from S3. So this dot load images. And once we call this, we set our images to an empty array, and then we use the provider we just created and call getFileList. We subscribe to the observable and get a list of files. So now we're just getting the names of the files, and that's why we need to iterate this. And for each file, call our provider and say get signed file request for the name, subscribe again, and use the result. And now we can actually call push on our images array and add a new object. The key, perhaps not, oh yeah, it's mandatory for the deletion. And the URL is the resource we get back from this call. You can add a log statement here or here and there to see if everything's working for you, but this is how it should work. Okay, let's continue. We need a way to capture images or load images, and therefore I got a standard function I like to use. I like to present the action sheet where the user can select either load from library or use the camera, and in both cases we will call a follow-up function called take picture, and the source type is passed to this function, which is then either a camera or the photo library. To take images, we need some options of the type camera options. Of course, not imported yet, but we can change this. So perhaps quality, you can change it to make the images a bit smaller. Correct orientation, I got a strange bugs on Android when I was not using this. The destination type in our case is actually the file URI. So we will resolve this. That's why we needed the file plugin. We're not just using a base 64 string, we're directly using this. For the encoding type, let's pick JPEG. Media type, for now we just make this a picture, no videos. And finally source type, camera or library, and this is already passed to our function. Okay, before we dive into the hardest function, let's add the delete image function. We delete an image by its index inside our array. So I guess we actually don't need the key, but anyway. To remove, we say images splice. No, not slice, but splice. Add the index and just one object. And then we call on our provider the delete file function to remove. Of course, it should have only one object, so we can use the first object. And here we use the value key. Okay, we still need it. So subscribe to this if you want, and perhaps create a little toast message. Toast controller create message. I think we got the message from the backend even. So duration 2 seconds, not 20. And what I always forget, of course, present the toast. So when we delete it, we get the array of objects, but it's actually only one object. And we use the key value of that object to remove it, and then we present the toast. But now we get to what you've been waiting for, I guess. And that's what's happening right here for the upload process. So we start by, first of all, getting our picture. That's the easy part. Very standard. We get back image data, and we do something with the data. Now, after we got this, there will happen a few things, so it's a good idea to present a little loading controller right here. So we call create and present. Okay, now we got time to do more stuff. So the image data we get back is a file URI, and we can't directly use this because for the upload put request we need a blob object of our file, and therefore we go ahead and use our file plugin to call resolve local file system URL, which will first of all resolve our image data to something we can actually use. And here we get back, hopefully, a file. Okay, so this file can now be used to read as an array buffer, and we need to pass in a path and the file. The path should be the current temporary directory, which can be accessed, yes, right here. So after capturing the image, it should be in this temporary directory, and then we need the file, which is actually just the name right here. I'm just thinking if we need this, but I think for Android this is definitely needed, and on iOS it works as well. So go ahead, and then we got something I would call the real file. So the real file is now our array buffer, which we can append to the put request we need to make. The type of this should be anyway JPEG, or you could get it from the file, and we want a new name which is unique. So we ask our provider to give us a random string with 6 characters, and also we add a new date, so it's super secure. I hope you heard the irony, but this should be unique enough for our app. And finally append the type. So now we got a random string with a date .jpeg, and this will be stored inside our S3 bucket. Okay, now's the time again to use our AWS provider and call get signed upload request, and we just need the name, which will be the new name, and the type of the file, which is JPEG here. No, it's not. The type we need here is actually the content type, so this should be image JPEG. Okay, subscribe to this, and finally we get the data back. The request URL is inside data.signed request. So let's go back here. If we want to get a signed request, actually the file type is JPEG. I'm not sure why we got image JPEG in here. Let's see, I will just change it to type, perhaps it works. So we get back this signed request, and we can use this now to finally get signed upload. Yes, to upload our image. Upload file, the URL is the request URL, and the file is our real file, which we got from reading the file as an array buffer. So we subscribe, we get a result, and this is hopefully a successful result. So there's not really any error handling in here. Of course, you can add some catches if you like to, or you should do this. So after finishing our upload, we need, just like in the loading process here, more or less the same, I think. But our name is, in this case, of course, the new name we've created. And then we can push this into our array and finally say loading dismiss. Okay, this is quite a lot, and perhaps spend a few minutes to think through what we're doing. There are also some comments in the related tutorial, which is linked below the video. But it's hopefully more or less clear. So first of all, get the image, resolve it to a local URL, read that local file so we can append it to a put request, create a new name, get the put request signed URL, and use this URL to upload our file, and finally resolve the new file so we can present it in our array as well. Okay, I hope you're still with me, because now we get to the last part of the tutorial, which is creating the view. So let's make this also look nicely. We use the primary color here, and inside we use an Ion list with Ion card, ng4 let image of images, and also we use the index of the iteration so we can later easily remove images. Image source is now just the image URL, nothing else needed right here. And we also add a button which will not always be displayed. So danger. I added some styling right here because I wanted to make it look a bit nicer. And the button will only be displayed if variable edit is true. And on click, this will call delete image with the iteration key right here. And just an icon, trash. Always a good idea when you want to delete some stuff. Okay, so we got this delete icon, we got the list. Okay, we of course need the fab button to get the action sheet and upload new stuff. So button Ion fab, and on click we call present action sheet. And also an icon here, which is camera. So finally, we need a way to enable the edit mode, and I will just add some button at the end of the top bar. So button, Ion button, icon only, and on click we will do it right here. We set edit to not edit, very ugly, but fine in this case, I think. So the one unlock will be displayed if we're already in edit mode, and the lock icon will be displayed if we are not in edit mode. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Let's see. Ion button is not a known element. What? Please? What is not known? What's wrong with you? So the Ionic CLI in the last days was not really friendly to me. Hopefully it's just a minor issue. Button, Ion button, and button, Ion button. Button, Ion, fab, I don't know. What's the problem? Custom elements, Ion button, Ion buttons, right, that's better, yes. And you see I already got one image on AWS S3. We get this edit mode right here, but of course the upload here won't work because we don't have Cordova here. So let me switch over to the iOS simulator. Okay, one last thing before deploying. I had a little typo in here. I had just name, but we of course need the new name here. So now I got the app on my device, and as you can see on S3 we got one file which is displayed right here. If we go ahead and use one from the library, let's use this. We see the loading indicator, and once it is finished the file is right here. If we update S3 we can also see that the file is right here. It's quite big, but no problem. If we change our lock, we're able to edit this, and we go ahead and delete this one, refresh right here, and see the file is gone. So now we are able to upload files, get files, delete files, perform everything we need with our Amazon S3 Bucket using Ionic, and also our NodeJS backend as a server to protect access to the actual S3 bucket. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you did, please leave a comment, or perhaps say if you want to see how other apps are developed or could be developed using Ionic. I really like to make these kind of full stack tutorials, including a backend. So if you enjoyed, give thumbs up and leave a comment. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great day and take care.